Welcome to the WFNY podcast. I am your host for this episode, Scott Sargent, and with me this time around, I'm very excited to have back in the fold none other than former WFNY Associate Editor Will Gibson. Talk about a lot of things, including Will's recent move to Philadelphia, though I guess not so recent now. It has been a long time since he's been back, but we are having him on this time to talk about Wrestlemania. This Sunday is the WWE's big event. Will used to write about WWE for Waiting for Next Year and has done some stuff for Yardbarker. We talk about some history, we talk about some future, and to be a little more timely, we talk about what he feels about the current landscape of the WWE, super fans, the internet, and how things have changed since watching the days of Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, and take your pick, Yokozuna, Earthquake, whatever fat guy you want. Here's Will.
It's never quite what you want it to be, right? Which is kind of the essence of being a wrestling fan. Is I feel like you're always imagining, like, oh, what if they did this? What if they did that? But the weird thing is, if you look at the card, which is, God, I wrote that. I think right now we're scheduled for 13 matches, which is really long. But there is, as much talent on the card as I can remember, in my relatively few years. But I don't know if that's equating to, an interesting card or a compelling show.
Just a fair warning. We got about 90 minutes of that kind of information coming at you. So it might be a double commuter. It might be a plug it in, let it rip. But it's a long one, a lot of information. We talk about a lot of things. But trust me, if you're a fan of WWE or wrestling in general, or just like listening to two guys chat, it's a good one for you. So I promise that. But before we get into it, Patreon, patreon.com/WFNY, where you, as a reader or listener of Waiting for Next Year, can help us get to that next level. We have a lot of things planned, and we have a lot of people already supporting us. And if you're not there yet and want to help join, please, by all means, do patreon.com/WFNY. Without further ado, let's take it to Will Gibson. All right, as promised, returning to the WFNY hallowed grounds, his former associate editor stomping grounds, Mr. William Gibson. How are you, sir?
It's good to be back. I thought about, since it is WrestleMania week, I thought about opening with the Rock style, finally. But I don't want to blow out anybody's ears. But it's good to be here, Scott. How you doing?
Doing all right. We miss you a lot. Your wit, your wisdom, your availability prior to taking on more adult-like ventures. But no, we're doing well. How is Philadelphia?
Philadelphia is good. I'm as we speak. I'm looking out my window onto the streets of West Philly. It's a lovely evening. I'm glad to say I like the town. It honestly reminds me of Cleveland more than I think anyone here would ever want to admit. Because, they're maligned by most of the rest of the country. So I sympathize with that quite a bit.
Do you get any Fresh Prince jokes being in West Philadelphia?
Yeah, I do quite a bit. And my first name is not helping matters. But, I enjoy it. Every day on the way to work, I get spun around a dude's head, get scolded by my mother. So it's just like the TV show.
That's perfect.
We were talking a minute ago. You were saying that you had been to Philly once upon a time.
So, yeah, a buddy of mine, a good friend who I'm still friends with, I've known him since 6th grade, he went to Case for material science engineering, and he ended up, they do a lot of co-oping when you get up in the ranks there, and one of the places he co-opted was in Reading, PA, which is not very far from you. And yeah, a buddy of mine and I, we took the Turnpike Drive, and we were going to spend one night in Philly, and then we were going to go to New York City for a night, which we did end up doing. But the story I didn't want to ruin for you was when we were in Philly. We didn't. He was pretty much new there, and we didn't quite know where to go. So we're walking around downtown. We grab a bite to eat. We eventually do the cheesesteak thing, but that was later in the night. And we just would ask groups of people, like, where should we go? Where should we go? And independently, each one of them, we would ask around dinner time, was like, oh, you got to try this club shampoo. It's like where everybody's going, blah, 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 blah. We meanwhile, we're like 21, 22. And then
your babies, you don't know any better.
A little bit later, again, hey guys, or where should we head tonight? And oh, you got to try this place, Shampoo. It's downtown, blah 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 blah. And then we never end up making it there. But we get back to, I think it was to the hotel, or it was the next day. And this is like Waze and Yelp and all that stuff. And we find out that literally every person we asked where we should go is trying to send us to a gay bar.
So you'll be glad to know that tradition carries on to this day. I can't vouch for it in person, but if you go on to the Philly subreddit, r/Philadelphia, often you'll get, good-natured people saying, hey, I'm coming in for the weekend, where should I go? What should I see? And invariably the first response will be Woody's. And,
is Shampoo still around? I don't even know if Shampoo, have you heard of this place? Does it still exist?
It might be Woody's under a previous name, honestly. I would not be shocked.
Yeah, so that is obviously, it's good to hear that's a decades-long tradition of sending out-of-towners to gay bars.
Yeah, Philly, very progressive in that way. Doesn't get a lot of credit for it, but long ahead on these sorts of things.
Yeah, ahead of its time.
Absolutely.
That is awesome.
We'll have more of that on our other podcast. I can't think of a title that isn't offensive. Anyway.
No, it's perfect. It'll definitely be at least one or two bullet points in the show notes when this thing goes live. But you kind of hinted towards it, and earlier when you introduced yourself. But the reason I wanted to have you on, and it's not a very popular or much discussed topic at Waiting for Next Year, but WrestleMania is coming up, and you are one of the few, I guess, Clevelanders, which I guess begs the question. There's actually a lot of people who I wouldn't have thought of as WWE fans, whether it's Sports Yelling or Ben Axelrod, or a handful of Cleveland fans who on Mondays or Tuesday nights get together and kind of talk about wrestling. But you, more so than most, especially when you were with Waiting for Next Year, was doing some WWE stuff, and I know you were doing some, or you may still be doing some stuff for Yardbarker in that same regard. So I wanted to have you on to talk about the big event that we seem to have had this long road to WrestleMania, which seems to exist for like 5 months. But
I think you have to pay WWE if you use that phrase. They're very particular about their phrasing.
Yeah,
but, exactly.
But yes, I wanted to have you on to chat WrestleMania, and then obviously anything you wanted to talk about. But I guess first question would be: are you, like most stans, underwhelmed by what is going to transpire or will allegedly transpire on Sunday?
I mean, that is the question. And I feel like for wrestling fans, quote unquote smart wrestling fans, which I think all that really means is that you go on Reddit and bitch about it afterwards, as far as I can tell. I'm not super duper plugged in, but a little bit anyway. But often, it's never quite what you want it to be, right? Which is kind of the essence of being a wrestling fan, is I feel like you're always imagining like, oh, what if they did this? What if they did that? But the weird thing is, if you look at the card, which is, God, I wrote that. I think right now we're scheduled for 13 matches, which is really long. But there is, as much talent on the card as I can remember, in my relatively few years. But I don't know if that's equating to, an interesting card or a compelling show. Because you've got, a lot of the guys who have developed over the past few years and are now stars, your Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, they're ostensibly coming into their prime, and you've still got, some of the older guys. Well, this year you've got quite a few of the older guys. But, your Triple H's, the Undertaker, Brock and Goldberg. And then you've got some slightly younger acts as well, or just new to WWE. So there's a ton of talent, but I don't know. It's hard not to look at it all and feel a little underwhelmed.
Do you go back and watch old pay-per-views?
So it's funny, right? If we had to push this back at all, I was just about to put on last year's WrestleMania, just kind of refresh my memory. Sometimes I'll do it, if I'm just hanging out on the weekend and don't really have anything to do, or if I'm, having a cocktail before bed or something. Occasionally I'll throw one on. Because, yeah, I mean, the network, you know, $9.99, is a pretty awesome thing, you know, if you're a wrestling fan. It's, you know, got every WWE pay-per-view ever, you know, a lot of WCW, ECW, all this old footage. So, yeah, you can easily, you know, go on a binge. Do I do it often? Not really. There are some matches that I like that I'll watch all the time, like John Cena, CM Punk, Money in the Bank, 2011 in Chicago. That would be a whole hour on that topic alone. But I don't know. With wrestling, every once in a while, there's just there's an old adage. A guy named Max Landis, I believe, is a filmmaker. He made a video, which I'm sure is on YouTube, called "Wrestling Isn't Wrestling," and it's this long thing, sort of trying to, you know, explain and recontextualize what wrestling is. Anyway, there's one quote in it which he just says, you know, when wrestling's bad, it's really bad. But when it's good, it's bleeping great. Can I curse? Is cursing fair game on this podcast?
All you.
Okay, in that case, when it's good, it's fucking great, which is so true, and it's hard to explain, but when it's good, it's great. So yeah, I'll occasionally watch an old one if it's some of the great stuff.
So the reason I asked is because much like what you were planning on doing, is I had some time to kill a weekend or so ago, and I did watch last year's WrestleMania, and I found myself thinking of this year's, and you've seen it, so I'm not spoiling anything, and anyone else who hasn't, who's one of the 5 or 10 people who's gonna listen to this podcast, you've had a year to do so. But the pops when Shawn Michaels came out, or when Stone Cold Steve Austin came out, and then with New Day, and when The Rock came out, and then was confronted by the Wyatt family. I thought to myself, and feel free to disagree, one, I don't know how they'll beat that, and two, the best they could do is replicate it, and at that point, I mean, how many times can you just trot out these same old guys and have Shaq come out to the Battle Royal and have, you know what I mean, have these same kind of characters come out and do their thing without it becoming another, you know, essentially Shane McMahon match where he just jumps through tables. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the age-old question, it seems. There has been, you know, as sort of the last few guys from, you know, the Attitude Era, your Triple H's, Undertakers, you know, as they're sort of aging, you know, close to out, you know, how do you pass the torch? How, you know, because I agree that, you know, these nostalgia pops, they're still huge. You know, if Stone Cold or The Rock show up at WrestleMania, you know, that's a guaranteed 100, I don't know what the capacity is at the stadium this year, you know, 70, 80,000 people going nuts. And it's tricky, you know, because they've tried sort of building their own stars. And I mean, so to dive into one match that sort of illustrates this, which I imagine is one of the more, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the right word. But anyway, Undertaker versus Roman Reigns, you know, is a real litmus test, I guess, because Roman is still a widely hated wrestler by a lot of the, quote, smart fans. I don't want to interrupt
you, but I do want to go match by match. So
not at all.
Don't go too crazy on your predictions and stuff.
Oh, okay.
But go ahead. Keep going.
Okay, well, I'll just keep in sort of generalities here. But so something that I think is a side effect of, you know, sort of the, quote, smart fan internet era is that, you know, more people are more sort of plugged in to what's going on behind the scenes. You know, like Dave Meltzer, the wrestling journalist, is, I don't know how, you know, famous or popular a figure he is, but he's the Adam Schefter, the Woj of wrestling, basically.
He was just on with Richard Deitch.
Point being that, yeah, exactly. Point being that, you know, a lot of people, so they know that Roman Reigns for years, the plan has been, you know, make him the new John Cena, make him the new Hulk Hogan, just try to make him the guy that, you know, that you put on every poster, that, you know, the LeBron of wrestling. And people have known that, and they look at him, and, you know, he's a great wrestler. Like, in the ring, he's absolutely wonderful, but on the mic, he just doesn't do it. So people look at him and they just think, you know, that's not John Cena. That's not The Rock. That's not whoever. So there's this, I don't know, there's some, if you read David Shoemaker, he always writes about, you know, sort of the meta commentary on whatever's happening. And so on one hand, you've got Roman Reigns, who they're trying to build up to be this huge guy, but no one, they're not quite accepting him. And then you've got Undertaker, who's, still just, anytime he shows up, it's an event, but he's 50 years old? I don't know. How do you navigate that is the question.
It will be very interesting. And I really can't think of, and I don't know if it's a product of the times with the internet and outspoken fandom, where there's been a guy who, if you talk to, and I don't know how many children you talk to, but I have clients. I have clients who have young children and neighbors who have young children who love Roman Reigns. They are all about it. Like they are willing to accept this guy as a headliner. And then I think, and then you have people our age, and I'm going to group the two of us together, even though you're several years my junior, and the Shoemakers of the world who see through it. Do you know what I mean? And I wonder if it's a product of, the way that my dad treated LeBron when he came up. Do you know what I mean? Like, he was already given the King James moniker, and this kid hasn't won an NBA game in his career yet. So I'm not buying into this, and I just wonder if it's a prove it thing more than anything. But it is very interesting. I think litmus test is a great term for it.
Yeah, no, remember South Park had an episode a while back. I forget the rest of the episode. But basically, the punchline is that Stan is diagnosed with, as he's getting older, you are diagnosed with a condition called being a cynical asshole. so maybe that's all it is.
Did he get a Twitter account?
Exactly, he should have. But yeah, it's the same kind of, like Thon Maker was kind of like that for me. You see videos of him as like a 15-year-old or whatever, or Lonzo Ball, the whole Ball family. Sort of falls in that similar phenomenon, which, you're just kind of like, this guy, he hasn't done anything yet. Why is he so great? Mm-hmm. So maybe that's all it is. Because Roman is, for as much as people bitch about him, his matches are consistently pretty damn good. Whether or not you like him, wrestling is inherently subjective, but, he's good. He's not screwing up basic things. He makes it look good. He's got the look and all that. It's weird how much of wrestling is really just kind of like a beauty pageant, but it's the best. I'm so happy it's WrestleMania season.
That is a great segue. Because we'll go match by match here. But since you said the beauty pageant, the 13 matches, but 3 of them are on the quote unquote kickoff show.
Yes.
First of which, I would be surprised if it wasn't the Smackdown's women's title. Alexa Bliss, Mickie James, Carmella, Natalya, Becky Lynch, and then Tuesday's edition, Naomi. I guess first thoughts, not without being mansplaining, the whole female, card. But what are your thoughts on, I guess, when it comes to the women, SmackDown versus Raw, for one, and then 2, what do you make of the? I'm going to put it kindly, messy storylines that they've kind of weaved in here, while they have all of these women feuding, when there's really only 2, 3 if you want to count Becky Lynch, because I'm going to say Alexa Bliss and Naomi are easily the 2 best wrestlers in that category. But Becky is, as she was a champ last year at this time. What do you make of that? What do you make of that whole mess?
It'll be a recurring theme, I think. Just that, so they did the WWE brand split last. I forget when it was exactly. Last summer, last spring.
8 months ago.
8 months ago only. God, so it feels like years. But so now, they always had 2 shows a week, Raw and SmackDown, but it would usually be the same cast. So now they're ostensibly different. So you've got, Raw only people, SmackDown only people. So, ultimately it just means that you have 2 shows worth of stories to try to cram into one pay-per-view. So, just the somebody's going to get squeezed. And unfortunately, the SmackDown women sort of got some of that, just all being stuck into one match, more or less, except for the Miz and Maurice. We'll get to them later. It's, because I look at the match and I want to be interested in it, but like you're saying, I'm not sure what the story is. Why is this happening? Yeah, they're competing for the title. I don't know. It just feels like it's going to be a big messy schmoz. And I hope it's more than that, but I'm not sure. And I like a lot of the individual competitors. Alexa Bliss, I think, has been excellent, over the past few months. Becky and Natalya, even they're all talented, but I'm not sure. I hope I'm pleasantly surprised.
So 2 questions. Is it fair to call Alexa Bliss one of the better heels in the WWE? And 2, who's going to win the match?
So that's a great question, because she's it took her a little while, I think, to just kind of get accustomed to sort of WWE TV and the rhythms of it. And I'm not sure what makes it, WWE style different from NXT or other promotions, but there is something about it and just being in a giant arena every week. But she is good. She plays, she's got a character. She's just always sort of permanently disgusted and above everything. And, she really nails it. So yeah, as a heel, I very much enjoyed her work. And who wins this? Oh, that's a great question. I'm going to say Naomi. They sort of gave her, so she just returned from injury this past week, but she, had the belt for a minute. And it's in her hometown, Orlando, which I don't think I've ever heard someone, refer to Orlando with so much pride. But they've been playing that up a little bit.
Mickey Mouse.
God bless you. God bless you, Florida. But yeah, I'll go with Naomi getting the hometown win. Although you often, being in your hometown is a death knell for WWE, but I'll pick Naomi.
This is going to sound horrible, but I think, kind of my dark horse to win the entire thing. And I had a feeling she was going to be in the match anyways, when they kept saying all available women. They were never really saying who. Yeah. And to that point, I wouldn't count Nikki Bella out of a surprise appearance here in this one. But when she came storming down the ramp on Tuesday and gave Natalya a flying crotch to the face, that was I think that was a signal that she's not only back, and she got a good pop and the fans really appreciated her. So I think it is going to be a Nikki Naomi feud for the next at least couple weeks here. Yeah, I can certainly see it. All right. And apologies if you are a cruiserweight guy, but if this was fast forwardable on Sunday, I have no interest in Neville and Austin Aries. Yeah, so this is what I was sort of going down the card earlier, and this one is, I think, really a match for wrestling fans. You know what I mean? Because so much of WrestleMania is, it's the big, it's the Super Bowl of wrestling, but more than that, it's kind of like the Today Show of wrestling. We're trying to get as many casual eyes on us as we can. So in this one, neither of these guys is a household name by any means. They've had a nice little feud going, but it's not been headline stuff, but I'm sure it'll be a great match. The cruiserweight action is, so they have their own sort of show, WWE network only show, which I admittedly don't watch all the time. So it'll be good, but it's such a long night of wrestling that, you're certainly forgiven if you want to fast forward through it. But I'll pick Austin Aries to take the belt off Neville. Sure. I mean, I anytime I get a chance to watch either Monday or Tuesday on delay, I literally do fast forward anything once I see the purple, I just blow through it. Yeah, it's interesting because they gave it its own sort of color and branding and all that, which I guess is supposed to encourage you to think of it as a distinct thing. But I bet a lot of people like you'd see it and go, "Oh, well, this doesn't matter." It's a tricky thing. It's a relatively young, division they've had going. So I don't know. Maybe this will be a show stealer. Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, which is a bunch of dudes pushing and shoving until something crazy happens at the end. You have Mojo Rawley Apollo Crews, Big Show, Kurt Hawkins, Goldust, R-Truth, Kurt Axel, Jinder Mahal, Bo Dallas, Braun Strowman, who, if you ask me, got hosed by being in this match, Fandango, Tyler Breeze, Dolph Ziggler, whose career I just don't understand, Rhino, Heath Slater, Jason Jordan, Chad Gable, Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, Mark Henry, who is like literally relegated to these kind of matches, and that's it. Titus O'Neil, Kalisto, and a bunch of other guys that are TBA. Your thoughts on this kind of match in general, and if you have a favorite, and then I'm gonna blow your mind here when you're done speaking.
Okay, I hope it doesn't involve Shaq. I'm just going to say I'm really happy Shaq is, as far as we know, not involved with WrestleMania. There was a lot of talk of he and Big Show having a match, which I wouldn't have been about anyway. So this match, so it's it's a slightly downsized Royal Rumble, right? But so where it sort of lacks luster for me is, so the winner gets the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal trophy. The end. There's no kind of title shot attached. As much as they want to attach prestige to this thing, it's only 4 years old, if that. But it's always kind of fun to just see a ton of guys, like a Royal Rumble, just a ton of guys doing ridiculous stuff. I don't know. If I were asked to pick a winner, it would be Braun Strowman, just 'cause he's a giant dude, a mountain of a man, as they always refer to him. He's actually been just I agree with you. It would have been great to see him in another match, 'cause he's surpassed all expectations of mine over the past few months. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I disagree in a way about the trophy, and that's it, because I do think with the way that, I'm trying to think of a way to word it, the push that has happened for Baron Corbin following his win last year is pretty instrumental.
Yeah.
There will always be that schmozzy stuff with the pushing and shoving. There's bound to be someone Shaq-like to be in it. I don't know who that'll be, and they'll push and shove, with the Big Show or Mark Henry or whomever. And I bizarrely think that for whatever reason, especially after what happened Tuesday, they're trying to set up Mojo Rawley as a player here.
Yeah.
But I do think, and this is where my blow your mind kind of, and this could be out there and I have no idea. I think Luke Harper, who isn't announced to be in this match, is primed to be in something like this to get that same kind of Baron Corbin push. Because he is bizarrely not involved in anything in the entire card, and given the way that they've kind of made him a legitimate person, which I've really enjoyed over the last couple of months.
Me too.
I do think that he's primed to have a role in something, and I don't know if that'll launch him into a title shot against Bray. I don't know if it'll be another Intercontinental shot, but I feel like he is in line for something, and I can't see how he would fit anywhere else on the show without being in this match.
Yeah, so I guess I've sort of been assuming, that he'll somehow show up in the title match with Bray and Randy Orton, but I don't know. It's tricky because I could go imagine any number of different ways they go with it. This match could make a lot of sense for him because you could certainly see them. Because for as much as I just buried the trophy, they stood Corbin out next to it for weeks and months. And, it being WWE, they can almost sort of retcon, some legitimacy to it. And now, the fact that he's got a title match at WrestleMania, sort of de facto gives the Battle Royal trophy a little more juice. But I think Mojo's an interesting point because, they've clearly taken a bit of a shine to him. And if we're looking for some kind of Shaq-like figure, somebody unexpected with some, maybe not from the world of wrestling to show up, I think Gronk is in play because he and Mojo, they're boys, you'll see him on Instagram or something. I feel like Belichick would have a heart attack, so that's maybe why it wouldn't happen. But Gronk at WrestleMania, I think, is just a match made in heaven.
He was just in the crowd, wasn't he?
Yeah, it must have been in Boston or something. Yeah, within the past couple weeks, he was there. Yeah, makes you wonder. Makes you wonder.
Yeah, that's a good call. I didn't think of that. And we've spent way too much time on this one match, but I do think if they do start going down the path where they're using this as a launching pad for these kind of developing stars, it will be essentially death knell for the careers of guys like Big Show, Gold Dust, whomever. There's guys like there's guys like Bo Dallas, there's guys like Apollo Crews, the Usos, obviously Chad Gable, who are really good wrestlers and could probably benefit from something like this. But once you are a Dolph Ziggler type, and this is the kind of match you're relegated to, I think your career is closer to being over than it is beginning.
Yeah, or you're at least in a extended holding pattern. Yeah, because I don't know how things work backstage, but I imagine they come to you and be like, well, you could be in this match or you could have the night off. Do you want to be at WrestleMania or not? That I guess that is the greatest function of this match is, for all the Mark Henry marks out there, they get a chance to see Mark Henry for 10 seconds.
There you go. Fast forward to the SmackDown, I guess, kind of last match thrown together. Shane McMahon, AJ Styles. Your thoughts on the pairing, your thoughts on the match, and your thoughts on the future of both individuals.
So this one got, I think caught a lot of hell, again, sort of among the internet crowd because, AJ Styles, so he just, debuted at, not this year's, but last year's Royal Rumble, a long established wrestler in, TNA and New Japan and all over the world, by the way, is the WWE, code speech for, New Japan Pro Wrestling. if somebody's won titles all over the world, they've been in Japan. Anyway, this match caught a lot of crap because, you've got AJ, one of the best wrestlers around, and you're throwing him with, Shane McMahon. Why isn't he in, he's fought John Cena already, but why isn't he in that type of match? Why isn't he against Roman Reigns? Why isn't he against the Undertaker? But all that said, I'm really looking forward to this match because these guys. So we were talking earlier, why is this match happening? What's the reason? What's compelling you to watch it? And in this, it's personal. I realize how silly it sounds, but this is when wrestling's great, when you just give yourself over to it. And so it's personal. AJ attacked Shane. Now Shane's, fighting back. And now AJ's made it his mission, not just to beat him at WrestleMania, to embarrass him. He wants to prove he's not in his league, all this kind of talk. And AJ, when he's at his best as this current heel incarnation, he's a little bit like a Will Ferrell character or like a little bit of a Kenny Powers style. He's a Southern guy. And he's taking it, 100% serious. He's playing it straight, which only makes it funnier. So I have no idea what this match will actually look like. It might be over in a minute. It might go 20. Shane might jump off the arena or the stadium. You can hear it in my voice. I'm way more excited than I think I have any right to be.
No, other than Triple H and Seth Rollins, which we'll get into, and because of the longevity of that storyline, this is probably the best kayfabe match of the night, right? When you factor in everything else that, with the personalities and the way that, to your point, they're both very, very into it. And AJ is easily one of the best performers, on the entire card. So it is exciting. My fear, and I don't know if you'll echo this, is that they have Shane win. And I
hadn't even considered it.
Right?
Yeah.
If Shane wins, it's a hugely disappointing, and I think it might get a pop from few, but I think it's going to be destroyed by super fans. But if Shane loses, then he just becomes the guy who goes onto big pay-per-views and loses to superstars.
Sure.
And he becomes a jobber. He becomes a well-paid jobber at that point. So I don't know which way they're gonna take this, and that's what makes me the most nervous. Because AJ should be in the title match. It should be AJ Styles and Bray Wyatt. I mean, for all intents and purposes. And he went from title match to a match that it was just loosely thrown together against the guy who's not even really a wrestler.
Mm-hmm. But I think then another way you could read it is that, yes, he's fighting an older part-timer, but he's also fighting a McMahon. You know what I mean? And this is WWE and the McMahon family biz. So I think in a way, and again, this is 1,000%, guesswork and projecting on how the McMahon family thinks and what, goes on. But I think this shows a lot of trust in AJ, that they would put him in a match like this. And yeah, if Shane just goes on to lose, I think that's kind of okay for him, the character, and the person. Because I think, like Shane, sort of like Vince, in real life, I think they really enjoy, being with the boys, being backstage, ribbon guys and all that kind of crap. But then Shane, the character, I think his sort of motivation here is, clearly AJ's the better wrestler, but, this is Shane's one chance. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm psyched for it.
Is AJ going to have to carry the match, or is Shane going to surprise us and actually be a decent, real match wrestler?
Probably the former. I remember when Shane sort of first, showed up last year to start challenging the Undertaker. The first couple spots where he was throwing punches, I was kind of, oh, shit, that's what he looks like. And they've made a big deal of saying, this is a straight match, no tables, no chairs, because Shane's, bread and butter is the big crazy high spot, right? And AJ made a big point of saying, this is a wrestling match, which again, so I don't know where they're going to go with it. Wrestling's so stupid, and I love it so much.
I love debating this, and that's and for people who don't understand how two guys, grown men, can sit around and talk about this for going on 30 minutes now.
Oh my God, already!
It's it's the storylines and the way they're going. It's not so much the match as so much it is what's going to happen after the matches. That's the big deal. And to that point, one of the big, more widely assumed to be a sunset match, at least temporarily, John Cena, Nikki Bella, Miz, and Maurice. You have a guy who's arguably the face of WWE right now in a middle of a pay-per-view mixed tag match. Your thoughts, and they can't possibly have Miz and Maurice win this match, correct?
Okay, so yes, I have thoughts. First, a brief shout out to the Miz and Cleveland, low key, like a big pro wrestling city.
Michael Mizanin, for those of you who are not in the know.
Yeah. If you went to Miami University with him before he dropped out, maybe you saw him there. But yeah, the Miz, Dolph Ziggler, Alexa Bliss. I'm not sure if she's from Cleveland. It might be Columbus. There's a guy in NXT called Johnny Gargano, aka Johnny Wrestling. It's like when the Miz and Dolph had their match, a few months back. Oh, that was a big night for a Clevelander. Anyway,
well, Dean Ambrose too, right? Where's Dean Ambrose from? He's from Ohio.
Cincinnati.
There you go.
But still Ohio. Yeah. So this match. It's a mixed tag. So Cena and his girlfriend Nikki against the Miz and his wife Maurice, and I include the relationship phrases because that's been the major point of contention. The Miz and Maurice have just been, it's been kind of adorable and romantic that as a couple they've just spent the past 3 weeks just making it a point to annoy and needle and shit on the Cena Bella pair as much as possible. It's totally absurd. Not that anything in wrestling isn't. And then there's another stipulation here, which is Al Roker has been brought in as it's not a joke. Al Roker's, I forget if I believe he's the special ring announcer or something to that effect. So a theory that, I came across online somewhere is that, the Miz and Maurice might win, but win or lose, the big storyline here potential, and not just Sunday night, but especially Monday morning, quite possibly on the Today Show with Al Roker, is will John Cena propose after the match?
Really?
Or will Nikki Bella propose to John Cena? Now, will this be in real life? Will this be in storyline? Will it be both? I don't know. But that's sort of been the big rumor that win, lose, or draw, that's the thing we're going to be talking about the next morning.
Well, the women will be happy. The 7 women who watch WWE will be thrilled that this long-term dating has finally led to more commitment from the movie star.
Exactly. But so this is like definitely the most sort of quote WrestleMania match of them all. 'Cause it's a mixed tag match, so that's a little different. It's got Cena, who's, by far the biggest sort of mainstream presence. They're bringing Al Roker into the fold. We might have a proposal on our hands. It's much more, wrestling is sports entertainment. This is more on the entertainment side. In the mixed tag part's interesting because, they don't really let, a man hit a woman in wrestling anymore, which, you can imagine why. But so, the point just being, if say the woman tags in the man, they both have to tag in and out, so it's inherently a little clunky. But you can understand why they don't want John Cena beating the shit out of this pretty little blonde woman.
But there's no way that the match goes by without her hitting him, right?
Probably correct. Yeah, that somebody's going to hit somebody. Whether it's with a regular move or a chair or the belt or there's no belt on the line. There's a good shot that Nikki will lay out the Miz. They've been teasing this big sort of double submission ending where both Cena and Nikki have, their finishing submission holds in so that, maybe there's a double tap out kind of thing. It's going to be silly, but I think it'll be fun.
Awesome. Yeah. So just for the record, I do think it'll be Cena and Nikki. But and truthfully, I think the proposal would make more sense if they win. So even if that is the storyline, they triumph over the goofs that are Miz and Maurice after weeks of prodding, and then do take that next step. Shifting gears to the red team, Roman Reigns, Undertaker. You discussed it a little bit before. Lot of rumors that this is the Undertaker's last match, if not, kind of signing a short-term Goldberg kind of deal or something along those lines. You're talking about a guy who debuted in June, I believe, of 1990. So we're going on 27 years of the Undertaker, which is crazy to think about. I'm
He's been
still
wrestling longer than Kyrie Irving's been alive.
when you put it that way, I am still pissed that they had him lose in the WrestleMania 2 years ago. Was it? I believe 2 years.
WrestleMania 30, I believe.
So 30. That breaking the streak, I think if you asked anyone on the decision making side that was not completely stubborn, which is essentially anyone but Vince McMahon. They would tell you that was a mistake, that there was nothing to be gained from that. But along those same lines, is there any way they can have him lose again to Roman, and especially being Roman Reigns, given what you mentioned earlier about him being the next big thing?
Yeah, I mean, so I think, to sort of stay on Vince, the conventional wisdom is, damn it, Roman's going over, that he wants Roman to be the guy. Which, I don't, I'm battling and thinking it over. Undertaker more, cause like the fact that he's still out there with the Undertaker gimmick, and I hate when people say, in 2017, but in 2017, you still have, the dead man doing his whole thing and people still love it. It's like, it's one of the last sort of old, carny gimmicks, if you will. And, you never want to see him go, but at some point he has to. And I have no idea how much he can still actually wrestle. And Roman will be a good matchup in that regard because, like I was saying, he's great in the ring. He'll, I'm sure he'll sell for Undertaker a bit. It'll make him, look like $1 million. But yeah, the question is, how are they going to end the thing? will there be any interference possibly? Because Braun Strowman's sort of been on the periphery of this. So you could see an avenue where maybe he gets thrown out of the Battle Royal early and then, has an axe to grind or something like that. I don't know. But again, I feel like they would be hesitant to kind of schmoz up a big Undertaker match like this. Oh, if Roman wins, the crowd will be quite something. People just lay him out. But it's funny because this past week I thought, so the age-old sort of complaint and remark is that, they've got to turn him heel. They've got to turn him heel. Everyone hates him. Just turn him heel. And Triple H made an argument in some interview recently that, well, if everyone's booing him already, doesn't that make him a heel? So again, it's sort of the meta whatever. But this past week he was in Philly and he really leaned into sort of the hate and sort of soaked it up and didn't try to win everybody over. He was like, yeah, I'm about to beat the Undertaker, deal with it. Wrestling's the best when you don't know what's going to happen. And this is one where I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, this is probably one of the, if not the match where you're just, you are, as much as we've kind of bashed the matches prior to this, this is the one that is that once this happens, it will be, one, how long can Undertaker go? Two will the longer it goes, the more Roman will have to carry him. But three, what happens? And I think the Braun line is one I overlooked. When he did, what was it, 3 weeks ago, wreck Roman, when he was coming up the ramp. So there is that potential there. I'd be a bit disappointed if the Undertaker's last match ended with interference in some capacity. But I do think it is to your point, I think it is setting itself up for some sort of ref turns his back, Braun cracks Roman as he's going for a spear or the Superman punch, and then he just flails into a tombstone. I think that could be what we're gearing up for here. Which take it or leave it, I guess. Same red team. Triple H, Seth Rollins. A lot. As much as we want to talk about Undertaker being around for a long time, Triple H, Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Has been around for almost as long. He wasn't quite a Ted DiBiase brother love pairing, like Undertaker was, but he's been around for a very, very long time, predating the Attitude Era. Don't forget, which is kind of crazy. Seth Rollins, up and comer, coming back from injury, allegedly, is with the knee. Triple H is essentially the boss-in-law. What happens here?
I just want to back up real briefly about the Cena and Nikki Miz Maurice match, which is that just to say that John Cena called the Miz a pussy on television this week. That
was one of the better promos I've heard in a very long time, especially when he bag tagged him and said he was shooting blanks.
Yeah, it was all great. But yeah, it's important to know that was used on professional wrestling programming. But yeah, this one, so this again, sort of like the AJ Shane match, this one has juice. It has that personal side of it. You want to see these guys beat the hell out of each other. And, Triple H catches hell, that he sort of always puts himself over and, that he buries everybody. That's sort of his, throughout history, his reputation. But he's just so damn good. When he's on the mic, and I'm sure some of it's because he is so experienced, he's been around so long. But yeah, because he's Vince's son-in-law, I'm sure he's got the latitude to say whatever he damn pleases. He's good. He makes it work. He makes you believe it. Sort of like you were referring earlier, that this is such a long, drawn-out storyline, not just between Triple H and Seth, but just Triple H's whole career. He's a devious, morbid son of a bitch. He'll hit you with a sledgehammer. He'll hit you with a shovel. You've got a broken arm. He'll rip at it. And that's all at play here. And, when Seth came back from his injury, not just recently, but a while ago, and he was ostensibly ready to be the face, it didn't quite work. But this, there's no reason it shouldn't work. You know, you want him to beat Triple H, and he's hurt. You know, he's got to battle the odds. He's, you know, playing against the house. He's sort of the Daniel Bryan character, if you will. So this one should be great. And Triple H, again, is just so damn good. I hope this gets plenty of time to breathe, because it could be really wonderful.
This is way overthinking. For way overthinking a lot of things here,
yeah.
I mean, you could think of maybe Ric Flair, maybe Lex Luger, maybe I don't even know, because any other name at that stage, Mr. Perfect, any other who were essentially heels their whole careers. Right. I mean, Flair had his moments where he was, a bit of a face. Luger, obviously, especially in the WCW years, was more of a face. But once he came to WWF, prior to WWE, and was a narcissist and the whole thing, I mean, they were career-long heels, and none of them, I feel, have been able to do it as well as Triple H has. And I think once Helmsley is gone, or Hunter, or whatever you want to, his real name is Paul, right?
Paul Levesque.
I think once he's gone, I think we're going to look back at him as a lot of the guys that I just named, in terms of being just perfect heels. From the way it takes him 7 minutes to get down the aisle, to the way he has, to your point, ended, a lot of matches so perfectly. Unlike the Shane AJ Styles match, I feel this one can end with the old guy winning and the new guy still being able to prosper beyond it. And I do feel, you want to, call AJ the heel in that other one. I feel like he has a lot of fans for, and he's not your typical heel. I do think I'd be very surprised if Triple H did not win this match.
Yeah, and it's a brief aside talking about, Triple H being just one of the great heels. I was reading something, again, this is probably on the Squared Circle subreddit, that was, giving a lot of credit to Mick Foley, / Mankind / Dude Love / Cactus Jack, that, him over the years was such an incredible, sympathetic face, that he was one of the guys who helped make Triple H, But again, he did it recently, said Foley had been the general manager of Raw, and he and Triple H and Stephanie, because the storyline is always, Stephanie's browbeating him, emasculating him, all this stuff. It wound up with her firing him. But it was cool recently to see Triple H and Mankind, or Mick Foley, kind of going at it again.
To have a nice day.
Yeah. Like stuff like that. It's so good. And again, this one you wonder if, there might be some kind of interference if Samoa Joe's been Triple H's lackey as of late. You wonder if he'll come to, tilt the deck. And I wonder, again, I wouldn't necessarily expect them to do this at WrestleMania. It's much more something reserved for the night after. But, say Samoa Joe comes out, it's a 2-on-1 beatdown, and then maybe a Finn Balor return, something like that. Because he's, rumors are he's going to be ready to come back soon. Again, it's probably Monday. But again, half the fun of wrestling is making it up. So I wonder if something like that can happen. Oof. Or Sami Zayn, he's sort of been involved with this as the stand-up good guy. No, it should be great.
Since you named them
both.
What
I was going to say earlier is,
go ahead.
You can really hear, I think, my Cleveland fandom in my wrestling fandom. Because no matter, whatever I'm looking at, I'm just saying, it'll be great. It'll be fine. They'll turn it around.
They'll figure it out.
Relentless optimist lives, always.
Bigger, and I could have saved this for the end, but since you've already named both of them, biggest omission from a main event, or not a main event, but a actual match in WrestleMania. Luke Harper, Samoa Joe, or Sami Zayn?
So Joe, I think I'm okay with him not being on, just because he, only showed up on WWE programming maybe a month ago. Now at the same time, I'd love to see him. He's excellent, but that's okay. Sammy or Luke? That's tricky. The thing with Luke Harper, I feel like I'm on board with you. I've very much enjoyed him recently, but I'm not sure how much, I don't know who you can put him with if it's not, Bray or Randy. I feel like he hasn't really interacted with the rest of the roster that much. Mm-hmm. Whereas Sami versus Joe would be the match that would sort of, take care of both of them. But then again, you've already got a baker's dozen matches on the card. I guess Sami, I think, is the one I would like to see the most. Big fan of his. But again, I feel like he's someone who we could see elsewhere, maybe in the Jericho Owens match, perhaps.
We will skip the two I was going to talk about first and just dovetail right into Jericho Owens just because you mentioned it.
This is the one, man.
In what way? Because I could not be more underwhelmed by this whole storyline.
We are in total disagreement.
I just don't get the Kevin Owens. I just do not buy into him as a top shelf superstar in the WWF or WWE. I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. I do. I'm trying to think why I do. So he has a lot of sort of indie cred, which I can't claim to have any knowledge about. I saw him in NXT a little bit. That's about it. But I think a lot of his appeal among sort of the, quote, diehard wrestling fans is that, and for Jericho as well, is that, they just love the business. They love wrestling. They've been doing this since they were, teenagers. So that for me, on sort of one level is just sort of, I respect that about it. I don't know. In wrestling, it's a weird thing, but just kind of knowing, I equate wrestlers a little bit with like stand-up comedians. You're just sort of living on the road and it's just all about putting on a show for the crowd. It's something about that I really respect and enjoy. But then this storyline, I just think it's been so good. I mean, the whole thing, so they've been best friends all this time. Chris Jericho has his list that he writes down everybody who's committed an infraction against him. And I just think
you don't find that to be super cheesy?
I mean, I do, but in the best possible way. I've absolutely loved it, and I have no intellectual reason for why. And I think the fact, or maybe part of why I like it is that it is so cheesy and so silly. But again, Jericho just plays it with such sincerity. And another sort of meta level to it is, Jericho was poking fun at Owens on Raw the other week for, he brought up a picture of him in a Jericho shirt with a Jericho poster and all that, just sort of making fun of him, saying, he says he's so much better than me. I'm his hero and all that, which works in storyline, but also I think there's, that's real. I think, as a kid, as a Canadian aspiring wrestler, that Owens really admired Jericho and still does, I'm sure. Jericho, I think, is one of the most respected guys out there. So on all those sort of levels, both the sort of meta real world side and the storyline side, and yeah, it's cheesy and ridiculous. To me, it's perfect. I love it so much.
I don't get me wrong. I know I'm on the wrong side of that, just given how much fanfare the whole thing has gotten. I don't know. I like them both to a level. Mm-hmm. I like Jericho as much as you can like a 47-year-old who is, no longer going to be ever in main events, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Owens, to your point, probably I think my lack of knowledge or passion around indie circuits in that regard might hurt him in my eyes there, but I don't know. To put it one way, I'm more excited about Ambrose Corbin than I am Jericho Owens.
Okay. I disagree, but okay. Is part of it with Owens, is it his look? Is it the fact that he is just kind of a dumpy neckbeard?
I think so. I tend to gravitate more towards the Seth Rollins, AJ Styles, Ambrose. Those. There was a while where I feel like if you put Kevin Owens, Braun Strowman, Bray Wyatt, they're all like the same guy, right? In terms of, I mean, they're different sides, but they're all the same build, the same style, the same thing. And I just don't know. I'm just not a fan. And I don't disparage anyone who is. It may be my preference for the SmackDown roster over the Raw roster. But I just don't, I don't know. I thought the whole list, the whole kind of Brutus the Beefcake barbershop kind of thing, the Piper's Pit, that they were doing with Jericho for a bit. I thought that just seemed so forced. I don't know. I just wasn't. You knew which way it was going to go, right? I mean, after the way it was trying, and to me, I much prefer the stuff. I don't mind being able to forecast certain things, like Naomi coming back for the women's match, or even to your point about Strowman interfering with Reigns' Undertaker. When it's that obvious that that's what they're trying to do, I don't know. I kind of tune out a little bit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess I'm sort of viewing it as like, was it Shakespeare's line, there's only 5 different stories or something like that, whatever it is. This is sort of one of the handful of wrestling stories, like you were saying, going back to the Piper's Pit or the, Michaels and Marty Jannetty breaking up. It's one of those just classic tropes, I guess. I just like these guys so much. But I imagine there's quite a few people in your camp. Well.
Yeah, well, I just feel even using that Shakespeare, like there will be no trope like that will ever be better than Jannetty going through that window, right? I mean, that was the one, and I get trying to redo it, but then that also makes it sound like Owens and Jericho were ever as popular as a tag team that the Rockers were. Do you know what I mean? And I just don't put him in the same. Maybe I'm romanticizing, Jannetty and Michaels a little bit, but I don't know. I have a hard time putting them in the same light. While we're talking tag teams, Gallows, Anderson, Enzo and Cass, Sheamus and Cesaro. Go.
Yeah, so 3-way match for the titles. It's officially been made a ladder match. I believe that is correct. I think this match will be a lot of fun. Ladder match, tag team ladder matches are always something. One of my favorite matches of all time, one that, we were talking about, do I ever watch old pay-per-views? One, it was No Mercy 1999, I believe, in the Gund Arena. It was the Hardy Boys versus Edge and Christian. Yeah. And they got a standing ovation the next night. It was great. Anyway, so point being that, these types of matches, it's a lot of fun stuff can happen. But really, I don't care about it too much. I hope Enzo does a good promo beforehand, and it'll be fun. I think I'm not really sure what's going on in the Raw tag team division. The Gallows and Anderson, they've been good. I enjoy them. Sheamus and Cesaro, same thing. Enzo and Cass, pretty much the same thing. It's fine.
So I love Enzo and Cass. My fear is at some point they go their separate ways. As I think Cass gets a push as the next 7-footer who can just wreck people. I mean, they tried to do it at the Rumble a little bit by having him be the first guy out and he did very, very well. But I really dig their whole thing. So my fear is twofold. That one, they eventually split those two up. And two, you mentioned Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian. And, I mean, all-time classic match, right? All 4 incredible performers, incredibly willing to do things with their body that most in wrestling wouldn't, let alone an average human being. I don't see how Sheamus and Cesaro flourish in that kind of match. Given their style. So I'm very, very interested to see what they do. And I do believe that I wouldn't be surprised if Gallows and Anderson win, because Enzo, Cass, and Sheamus and Cesaro, have their own thing going the entire time. And then Gallows and Anderson just kind of sneak in and take the victory.
Yeah, I like that a lot. But yeah, I agree. None of these guys, even Enzo and maybe Anderson a little bit, but none of them are really those sort of high flyers. Gallows is a big dude. Cesaro and Sheamus are both big dudes. Cass, obviously, a big dude. So I'm not sure. If one wants to get carried away with fantasy booking, there has been a lot of talk lately that, speaking of the Hardy Boys, that they may or may not be making their way back to WWE. Now, there's no way that they're actually going to show up at WrestleMania, but if they did, it'd be huge.
to kind of pause on that same light, we talked about the Stone Cold HBK Rock pops from last year. Outside of, say, Hogan coming back,
which possibly in play, I'll say that.
Who are your kind of, if you had to spin the wheel and place some odds on the roulette wheel, who would you be looking at here? I know you do a lot more subreddit reading and rumor type stuff than I do, so I couldn't even begin to go that route. But go, I will cede to your wisdom.
Yeah, no, it's a great question because like in the Battle Royal last year, Tatanka showed up. That wasn't expected. I remember the announcers didn't even mention it for a while. Shaq showed up. I wasn't expecting that. So Hogan would obviously be just on a whole different level, not just for what he means as a wrestler, but obviously his indiscretions. Just like it'd be fascinating to see how he would be received. And like someone we haven't talked about is the New Day is hosting. Now this is all sort of morbid and cynical, but if you could imagine some kind of avenue where the New Day and Hogan interact and sort of they like co-sign his presence and say like, we're black guys and we're cool with him. Like again, I'm not advocating this. I'm just saying it'd be sort of grossly fascinating from a PR perspective. I don't know. Other than that, The Rock, I hope he doesn't bring a flamethrower this year. That was really dumb last year.
That was really dumb.
Yeah, Austin's always in play. I'm trying to think who haven't we seen in a while? Kurt Angle, so he's getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, so
he'll be there.
He'll be around. Yeah. Same with DDP. So maybe those guys will come out and lay a diamond cutter on somebody.
Well, he was also in the Battle Royal last year, right?
Oh God, I think you're right. Or if not that, then maybe the Royal Rumble last year, something like that.
Yeah, he was in one of those matches.
In the picture.
And Michaels, don't forget, has been on some of the post-show talk shows that they do. So that's a great point. He's still connected somehow.
Yeah, and he briefly showed up in a segment with Roman a couple weeks ago, warning him of the dangers of the Undertaker at WrestleMania. Pardon the voice.
Yeah,
but yeah, I can't get past Hogan. If he shows up, all bets are off.
For sure.
I doubt it, though. Well, but maybe. You never know.
Ambrose Corbin. Again, Corbin, winner of the Andre the Giant match last year, has seen a huge push, and it stems back to Ambrose knocking Corbin out at the Elimination Chamber, and then Corbin subsequently smashing Ambrose with a forklift. Your thoughts?
Yeah, classic stuff. No, Corbin's been good. He was someone who I didn't necessarily think that much of when he first showed up on sort of the big show. He's been good. He's still, maybe not the best guy on the microphone, but a lot of guys are like that. He's got some cool moves. He's a big dude. He's got his character it's been very sort of consistent. His whole thing is, I'm a lone wolf. I don't trust anybody. It's sort of vaguely, very thin outlines of Stone Cold. Not nearly to that level, but, don't trust anybody, all that. That's sort of his credo. And so just, from a storytelling perspective, I've appreciated that about him. And, all he wants to do is kind of go out there, fight, and make some money. So, it's simple, but that can be a good thing. And then Ambrose, too, he's someone who he's great. I really enjoy him. Like his match last year against Brock at WrestleMania, they had, a big street fight or something, which I thought was a huge missed opportunity. I thought that was the match where, Brock beats the hell out of him, but Dean doesn't stay down. He keeps coming. You know what I mean? I'm talking like the Macho Man. But so yeah, these guys, I think they could put on a great match. It's as with many matches on the card. I'm curious to see how much time they get. Will it be closer to 8 minutes or 25?
If they do get to 25, my thoughts could be it could be as good as Styles Cena at Rumble. I think if they give them time to work, and I think they're both incredible ring workers. I think for Corbin's size, I think he is terrific in the ring. I do agree he's cheesy on the microphone, or just a little tight. I don't necessarily know if I agree with the way that they've made every time Ambrose has the mic, it turns into a roast.
Sure,
but
he has a very broad. He can go from real cheesy, hacky, bar mitzvah humor. And then he tries to turn on the intimidating side, which kind of works, but yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, he's like a Street Fighter with dad jokes, right? And it's and I've jokingly referred to him as like a greasy looking Mike Polk. He has that that same look.
What a compliment!
But for whom?
What a compliment! Doesn't matter who.
But I don't really care who wins this match because I think it's going to be great either way because of how it's the one match that doesn't pit a 20-something with a 40-something. And I think it has the potential to be really, really good. And it's the one match again where I feel whoever wins, both guys can come out on top the way that Hardy's and Edge and Christian did after that ladder match where if they get the time, and they do it right, I think they both can come out as guys that fans love, even though Corbin is essentially the heel in this match. I feel like they're both going to have the respect of fans when it's all over.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that should be sort of the goal of this match, where as opposed to, say a Triple H Rollins or a Jericho Owens, you've clearly got one guy on the downside. These guys are both, I don't know how old they are, but, they're on the come up. I think, who knows, maybe they beat the hell out of each other so bad they both get counted out or something. Like, that'd be a weak sort of non-finish, but it, could make them look good.
How when they have, like, a really good string of songs at a wedding, and then they're like, we're going to slow it down real quick, and then everybody leaves? Bayley versus Charlotte Flair versus Nia Jax versus Sasha Banks in the elimination match.
Yeah. So it's become a fatal four-way. As of a week or two ago, it was a triple threat. They've added Nia Jax to it. So this one, I think I want to love it so much more than I do. Something that, WWE beat into the ground over the past year was the talk of the women's revolution, which is basically, maybe not Nia so much, but, Bayley, Charlotte, Sasha, Becky Lynch, Alexa Bliss, all these, relatively new women who they're wrestlers, they're very respected wrestlers. It's not, the day of the broad and panty matches and mud wrestling and that kind of stuff. We've got sort of this generation of women who, they looked up to wrestling when they were kids. And, so you can really grab onto that. It's great. It's empowering. It's all that. But, man, Bayley, I just wish you were better with the microphone in your hand. I want to love her so much. And it's just not quite working. Same with Sasha, even Charlotte. They just sort of fall back on pet phrases. There's a lot of calling each other sweetheart. The match, I think, will be very good, in part because they won't be talking so much. And it hurts to say. Like, I remember when Bayley made her WWE debut, it was, when was it? SummerSlam, something like that. She came out as Sasha's tag team partner. Now, if you look up the YouTube clip, she got an insane pop. It was such a cool moment. And just so much of that momentum has been squashed. This one, I don't have as much of a problem with it being a four-way, like with the Smackdown women's match, because, for the most part, it sort of makes sense. But yeah, I wish it was just on track to be a little better than it is. And it could well be a great match, but there's just not quite as much juice here as there could be.
Completely agree on pretty much all fronts. Yeah. I'll add that I'm very surprised they had Charlotte lose at whatever that last Raw pay-per-view was. Whatever that.
Yeah.
I'm very surprised they did that. But and it kind of goes similarly to what we discussed with the SmackDown women, where they don't know what the storyline is, and they're all just feuding with one another, and there's nothing to make of it. And I feel like they're doing a lot of that here as well. Charlotte is clearly in a league of her own, both in the ring and with the mic. And I don't know how much more time we have to give this, other than I'll be very, very surprised if she does not win this match in one way or another, whether it's with, and something to consider here. And I'm just thinking of this on the fly. Who was the protege? What's her name? Dana
Brooke. Clevelander, I believe.
Yes. Another Ohioan.
Yeah.
Could play a role here, in keeping Charlotte from winning, given the way that Charlotte's kind of dispelled her over the last couple of weeks. I do feel like that is prime for her to get involved as a, kind of a face swap here in terms of being, on the one of the good guys. But my fear is all that does is lead to Bayley or whomever having the mic in her hands more often, and then me not liking it even more. Yeah,
that's possible. I feel like this story is a bit better than the SmackDown women, but it's, again, sort of, we were talking about stories that are too telegraphed, because everything here is pointing to, so Sasha and Bayley, they've been best friends, and, they've been beating that down, so you make sure they're best friends. Boy, wouldn't it be something if Sasha turned on her at the match at Wrestlemania.
Sasha Banks heel turn, yeah, that's the other one that I feel is very, very likely.
Which would be, even if you see it coming a mile away, it's probably for the best, because that's, Sasha's character in NXT was so much about that. So some of the women's matches in WWE, at least, that really sort of put them on the map were Sasha and Bayley especially. And, they were great. And now, you sort of look at some of these weak promos and whatnot, and like, what happened to these matches where, Sasha was just stomping on her hand and, trying to break her fingers, and, there was this real venom to it. So hopefully we get some more of that. Yeah.
No, I agree. One of and what'll end up being essentially the main event from a time standpoint, in terms of how much time they're going to give these guys in the ring, in my mind anyways. Bray Wyatt, Randy Orton. I maintain it should be Bray Wyatt, AJ Styles, or I don't know if Luke Harper is ready for a match of this juncture, or of this stature at this juncture. I think the whole Sister Abigail storyline's weird. But I am a huge Bray Wyatt fan as a character, and as a ring worker. And Randy Orton, obviously his story is very well written. I mean, the guy's been a champion many times over. Both of these guys are, I believe, third generation WWE stars. So they're the pedigree is there for a really, really, really good match. I'd be shocked if Bray does not win, given that he hasn't really wrestled much since he did win. And I think the storyline will continue with him as the champion, but I will hold and listen to see what you have to say about this very one.
Yeah, so just sort of about the Bray's character and the storyline, it's funny to me, like it feels sort of, we were talking about the Undertaker, and Bray sort of feels more like that type of character, like he's from a different era. He's got the whole cult vibe, and, he's got the compound, and the other week he's covering himself with ashes and, channeling the spirit of Sister Abigail, who may or may not be the daughter of Satan, all this sort of stuff. But, just try explaining that to someone who's never watched wrestling. So it's weird, but I agree with you. It works. There's something about it that Bray, and, Bray Wyatt's only like 28 years old or something like that. So it's exciting to think about what he could do, going forward. I agree. It's been sort of a weird storyline. And, for all the talk of the Wyatt family, for the past 6 months, it's only been 2 or 3 dudes, which doesn't quite give it as much, as much weight.
I don't know. I saw about 90 dudes in sheet masks a couple weeks ago.
That is true. He had his whole this array of dudes in sheet masks. So maybe they'll. And that's something. Just a brief sidebar. The WrestleMania entrances are always something special. So like Bray, he had what did he have the other year? Some kind of like scarecrow hooded figures coming out. The tagline for WrestleMania this year has been the ultimate thrill ride. And like they might have some kind of roller coaster built into the stage or the ramp or something. It'll be weird, but it's, the spectacle of it is sort of one of the things that makes WrestleMania. So yeah, these guys will have some cool entrances. But
Triple H is still on his way to the ring from last year's WrestleMania.
In his Terminator getup with Stephanie and her
perched up above
Mrs. Terminator getup.
Mm-hmm.
This one I agree. I think Bray ought to hold on to it. You wonder if Luke Harper will get involved, although I feel like at this point we've gotten somebody involved in every other match, who's not in the match. But it should be a lot of fun. These guys really nail sort of the character work of it. Again, sort of like Baron Corbin's been consistent with his character. Randy Orton's got some of that also. He's sort of the devious snake. So it should be good. I'm looking forward to it. I'm curious when this match goes on, if they'll save Goldberg Brock for the very last match or if they'll put this one last, because I imagine it'll go a little longer.
I imagine it'll go longer, but I'd be shocked if Lesnar Goldberg wasn't the final match, even though it's probably going to last like 9 minutes.
Yeah. If we're lucky, they could fit 6 matches into 9 minutes.
And the good, segue, and we're going on about an hour 15 here, so I will cut you. I'll cut you loose here, and I have this, and then one other question for you.
Sure.
Brock Goldberg. I mean, is there more to it than Goldberg taking 10 minutes to get to the ring, them exchanging a couple blows, exchanging finishers, and then Lesnar winning in some fashion?
Yeah. So. The best, so this again is such a sort of litmus test, Rorschach kind of match where, depending on how you look at it, you could see a different thing. Cause they're both, dudes in their 40s. Goldberg might be in his 50s. They've barely wrestled 5 matches between them over the past year, if that. And the matches they've had between each other have taken, 90 seconds total. So, yeah, that's the question. We've seen no reason in kayfabe to believe that Brock is a credible opponent. He's been squashed twice, is that right? What was the Royal Rumble, the other match? Anyway. But what the best thing this has going is just the aura both of these guys have. Like Brock, especially when his music hits, no matter the venue, there's very much like a holy shit, this guy, look at that fucking guy kind of, feel about it,
Right.
Like,
no, for sure.
Like the training camp in Major League. But Goldberg too, he's got one of the sort of, so much of wrestling is the entrance, it's the spectacle. And he's got the whole thing with the security and the big sparklers and blowing the smoke and all that. And yeah, the entrances will probably be 5 times as long as the match. But that's not always a bad thing. The entrances, people will be on their feet to see this and just sort of the face off. And then, I would think that Brock would win just because he's more likely to stick around for a little while. But, how does that happen? Does he wear like a metal stomach protector to ward off Goldberg's spear? Does somebody get involved? Do they just sort of explain it that he was just, in the gym more than usual, so now he's ready? Again, it's one where I have no idea what's going to happen. I'd be surprised if it took more than 5 or 10 minutes, but I'll be watching. Like this one I'm as excited about as any.
I feel like it's one that the casual fans and the kids and everybody we talked about earlier when we were talking about the dynamics, the dichotomy between fans, I think that group is going to love it. And then I think we're going to be left like we were after that last Raw pay-per-view, being like, wait, what happened? So I'm looking forward to it. But it's to the point where they can only surprise me on the upside because I'm I'm just not thrilled with the match at all. And I do think a lot of it is the product of all the injuries that have happened on the Raw roster, over the last, say, 8 to 12 months.
Mm-hmm. And then just sort of the brilliant thing about pro wrestling as a business is no matter what happens, it's, well, I better watch tomorrow night to see what happens,
Well, that's the thing too with these pay-per-views. The Raw following pay-per-views are always really, really well done. So
yeah, and after WrestleMania, especially like that on the network, they did a little. I haven't watched it, but some little WWE network special about the Raw after WrestleMania. And basically, as far as I can tell, they make a big point of because that attracts the most diehard fans for the most part. There's people flying in from across the planet to go to Orlando to watch this wrestling event. And a lot of them will be there Monday night. So anyway, WWE is already sort of like, well, the fans will be crazy. We don't know what they'll do, which is basically their way of saying, like, if they don't cheer the way we want them to, this is why. It's not our fault. Yeah, I don't know. It's such a weird, dumb match. And like, that this is for the Universal title.
Which is still a made-up belt, in my opinion.
Yeah, which is that's still weird. The sort of dueling belts, and I'd love to see sort of a kayfabe hierarchy. Like that's probably the one they're trying to make the most valuable. It is the one they're trying to make the most valuable because it is on Raw. But yeah.
Well, it's weird. Yeah, to me, it's like the TV title back in the day. Like it's like, well, okay. Like you're not quite good enough to be the WWE title, but to that point, if you're going to keep the brand split, and you're going to have to, I don't know how, unless you have a match like the Rumble where you have a guy from one brand, win the Rumble, and the guy from another brand have the belt at the time. I don't know how you have it switch, brands, but. That's not for me to figure out. That's for the story writers to figure out. And finally, this is going to be a very, very anticlimactic question to end this marathon podcast. Does the New Day get involved in any capacity outside of ice cream and trombones?
Great question. I'm glad we mentioned them. Yeah, New Day, the official hosts of WrestleMania, which some people, sort of like we were saying with AJ being in the Shane match, some people would like to see him doing something a bit more significant. But again, sort of like AJ in the Shane match, I think it shows a lot of trust on, Vince and WWE's side. That, these guys are kind of the faces of the event. And yeah, I'm trying to think of the spot where they'd get involved. Maybe James Ellsworth somehow. Maybe they'll dispatch him. Something's going to happen. Or, they'll bring out a legend and dance with him and put him over. Because last year, I think they were in the mess with was it Austin and Mick Foley, and I think they got stunned, something like that.
Yes. Well, no, just the one. He tried to Xavier Woods, I think. Was it Xavier Woods or was it Kofi Kingston?
I think it was Xavier.
Tried to get Stone Cold to dance, and he did. But he danced over him after he stunned his ass. Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll do something. I could see them with The Rock. But they were with The Rock last year. This thing's going to be long, man. Like, I'm going to wear a diaper. It's like going to be 7 hours
7 o'clock.
Something like
starts
that.
At 7.
Oh my God! It's going to go till at least 11, probably closer to mid. Is that the pre-show? No, that's the real show that starts.
Yeah,
at 7,
I think
right?
I don't know, but all I remember is last year's was over 4 hours, like 4 hours and 25 minutes or something like that.
Dude, wrestling is a slog. Like I haven't been to a Raw.
That was before the 5-hour breaks between putting purple tape on the ropes.
Yeah, exactly. So that's been like sort of a funny thing as I'm looking at the card. I'm like, well, where's the squash here? Where's the one that's going to be over in a minute? Aside from Goldberg, Brock, I'm not sure where it is. Maybe AJ and Shane, but I doubt it. Maybe
Cena and Miz.
Huh? Yeah, maybe. It's going to be a slog. Yeah, but it's going to be a good slog.
We're gonna hate ourselves while we're watching it, but then we're gonna be glad we did, because I do feel there's while we can find a way to hate on every one of these matches in some capacity outside of Ambrose and Corbin. I feel Like they all have upside surprise to them. And truthfully, I know I haven't looked at it. I know there's odds on a lot of these winning or people winning. And I know that, we could say, I hope the Undertaker wins. But like something along those lines, I'm with 99% of, fans when I say that. So you never know what's going to happen. And I think that's the whole intrigue. And I part of me hates that I'm still watching this stuff at 36, but the other part of me, really still looks forward to, to Tuesday nights to see what these guys are going to do next.
I know. I'm telling you, wrestling is great for a Cleveland fan. We're going to be disappointed and upset, and afterwards we're going to think, "Oh my God, I spent all that time doing it." And just like before we know it, it'll be football season.
Excellent. Well, again,
so dumb, but it's so great.
I thank you for your time, sir. Are you writing or doing anything these days where people can find you other than your magnificently wise Twitter handle?
Scarcely. Occasionally, but scarcely. I keep hoping the itch will scratch me a little more, so I'll get back at it. But for now, if you want to be clued into the inner musings in my head, I'm on Twitter at WJC Gibson, and that's all I got. I'm afraid.
No,
waiting for next year.
Oh, thank you, sir. So for the 4 people who made it this far into the podcast, definitely check Will's stuff out. He'll show you things like him getting stuck in an elevator, and yesterday. Real quick, how'd that happen, and how'd you get out?
Just literally on the way to work, working a little 5-6-story building. Got on the elevator. Got on with 2 other people. The first person got off, and then it just sort of stopped. And me and the other guy looked at each other and were like, well, shit, so this is happening. But it was, we called our respective offices. They called the building manager, who then in turn had to call the elevator technician. And all in all, we were out of there in maybe 45 minutes. Yes. We had a nice little chat. He played high school football out here in Philly. He tore his meniscus back in the day. He's married, got a couple kids. Nice guy.
I'm glad you made a new friend, and you turned a nightmare into a dream, my friend.
Exactly. Rodney, if you're listening, I'll see you soon.
All right, buddy. Thank you again. Awesome to hear you're doing so well out there. And again, we miss you tons over at Waiting for Next Year.
No, thank you. It was a pleasure. I miss you guys. Happy WrestleMania week.
All right, my friend. Wow, holy hell was that long. But hey, big thank you to Will Gibson. Big thank you to anyone who made it this long and listening to us. If you have done so, I will hit you up with another commercial for our Patreon page, patreon.com/WFNY, where you can continue to help us provide more material like this, more material like what you see on our pages on a daily basis regarding the Cavs, Indians, Browns, what have you. Again, patreon.com/WFNY. And again, please make sure to follow Will at WJC Gibson on Twitter. And I believe he's on Instagram under the same handle. So again, WJC Gibson. Big thank you to him. Big thank you to you. And again, this is the waitingfornextyear.com podcast.